Sandra Herrera, the fourth member of our show. Sandra, welcome in. How are you?
Hey, gang. I'm doing all right. Happy to be here. Happy to talk a fun segment, I think, for us.
A really fun segment. Before we get to that, though, we just recapped the WSL weekend. And last week we did our predictions. And you said that Crystal Palace was going to be a dark horse, and they fell 4-0 in this opening weekend, bud. Rough.
My precious Palace. My precious Palace. Also, like, I did not use the words dark horse. Let's be real here. Come on now. Come on. But who knows? I'm still rooting for them to get that one game.
Okay, don't worry, I'll smash the order button on your kit.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Sandra, you're going to give us some background on the Latina Trailblazers in world footy. Let's start with Renae Cuéllar. Can you tell us why she's a Trailblazer for you?
Yeah, for sure. You know, we were thinking about this because we were like, it's Hispanic Heritage Month. We have a ton of players that we talk about week in, week out on this show. And a lot of them are Latinas who are complete ballers and wrecking things up across the globe. But it's a good opportunity to maybe talk a little bit about players who have been in these pioneering moments. And for me, I absolutely think of Renae Cuéllar for sure, because this is the player, when we think about the beginnings of NWSL, who scored the first ever goal in NWSL League history. It ends up coming in the way of a tie against Portland Thorns in 2013, but a great ball over the top by Bukowski, where Cuéllar is able to get on the end of this ball, eventually takes a touch and is able to slot this home past Karina LeBlanc. And we're talking in the opening 3 minutes of a first ever game played in NWSL. And I think this is particularly special because Cuéllar's pioneering presence is notable, as she was a player with dual national eligibility, someone of Mexican-American heritage, who's also part of that kind of incoming Mexican allocation player pool system.
Really cool to not only hear that story, Sandra, but to see the video from it. Throwback.
TBT.
Throwback to those kits, to the crests of each of those teams for
the football field markings.
Everything. It's a big throwback.
Come a long way.
Yeah. We have come a long way, but it's safe to say that the NWSL was built on Latina players. How did they influence 2013, the inaugural NWSL season?
Yeah, I love that, Lisa. It's a great shout. I mean, when we're talking about a third iteration of a women's professional league trying to sustain itself, there were a lot of kind of careful planning and plotting in terms of how do you make an unstable concept stable, right? Because we're talking about over 10 years ago, there was still a little bit of that narrative. It's just like, oh, like not a lot of people watches women's sports, which we know that's a bunch of bull now. And it's just like, how do you make sure that everything's okay? And you needed to get the partnerships right. And part of the NWSL's foundation was having this kind of now outdated and expired allocation player system, whether it was U.S. players who were sprinkled around to teams, Canadian international sprinkled around to teams. And there was a partnership with Mexico's footballing federation as well, in which they did not have a league at that time in Mexico. And they said, we should have our players part of this. Count us in. So they also had a number of players go around to what were 8 teams at the time. And there's a number of names there that will maybe ring some bells for some people. I'm looking at Cecilia Santiago and Pamela Tajonar as 2 goalkeepers who have been predominant faces within the Mexican national team program, but have had pretty historic careers. We're talking Santiago is making history as the youngest ever goalkeeper in a FIFA Women's World Cup at 16. Tajonar, who spent a lot of time in Spain with different teams, including Barcelona, but there's also Maribel Dominguez, who is the leading all-time goal scorer for Mexico's women's national team. And Monica Ocampo, I think, is a really good shout for me, because this is the player who also found herself helping sustain NWSL after spending time in WPS. So she is a player that was familiar in kind of breaking barriers for players in multiple leagues in the United States. And shout out to her time with Sky Blue, because she spent time with them, got a significant amount of minutes, scored some goals. I believe in that first year was named the club kind of Golden Boot or MVP. She was kind of given those honors because of her performances on the pitch with them. So a lot of good talent here that shouldn't be forgotten.
Sandra, once upon a time, we saw a young Marta Vieira da Silva start in WPS, Western New York Flash, and sort of carve out her career becoming the Marta. Where does her legacy fit within this broader context?
Probably like top, if we ever had to do like a ranking of these types of things. I mean, look, the Latin American diaspora is vast, right? And Marta's and Brazil is absolutely a part of that. And I think for a long time, this has been the go-to kind of, what we maybe want to refer to as like possible prototypical Latin American type of player. Values technicality on the ball, can bring flair, can bring pop to a game. And I think watching her be able to do this and across not just one, but two leagues, I think is incredibly special. Marta, during large chunks of her career, has said, this is where I need to be. I need to be in the United States and help build up not just one, but two leagues and do it in incredible fashion. Her WPS days were absolutely dominating. We're talking about from LA Soul, where she won Golden Boot, won the league, but got to the championship and fell short there. Unfortunately, a part of the growing pains is the folding of teams and leagues along the way. Soul folded. She went to FC Gold Pride and racked it up again, won another Golden Boot, won MVP, won the league, won a championship. Found herself as a free agent to Western New York Flash, did it again, another Golden Boot, winning another league title, winning another championship. It was an absolutely dominating performance. And while she spent a chunk of her career in Europe, playing in Sweden as well, she eventually found her way back, kind of helping NWSL find its footing once again. And the first time that Orlando Pride found themselves in the mix of a playoff run was in 2017. That year she did arrive to the team, and now we're getting to watch them do something so special week in, week out this year. And she said it, that she wants to keep making and chasing history with this Orlando Pride team so that they are completely unstoppable, that they become unchaseable. And I love that. She's absolutely amongst the Mount Rushmore of Latinas who have an impact on the game.
Absolutely. Even just the Mount Rushmore of NWSL players, I'd put Marta up there on that list.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
And Orlando is on the path right now to success, continuing their unbeaten run, Sandra. They've clinched a home playoff game in the postseason. And coming up on the show, Attacking Third, Sandra, we get to do our moments of the weekend, the big moments that stood out to us that we love. And I want to hear yours. You're not with us in the next segment. So what was your moment of the weekend? On the field, off the field, anything you want.
Look, I got to give some love to Kansas City Current. I think they found themselves in a little bit of a skid, and maybe my watchful eye was kind of had some hope for them, even though it felt like some dark waters there with the losing streak. But they've shaken some things up on the defensive line. They got Schultz in goal, and they kind of worked over the course to get some clean sheets. And now they have a massive performance coming over Washington Spirit. Spirit were without some key players. Let's not get it twisted. So maybe that had a little bit to do with it. But for a team that maybe was looking like they were struggling to find that kind of post-Olympic form, what a performance out of this weekend.
Yeah, big win for Kansas City, 3-0 over Washington. Sandra, thanks. Thanks for educating us on some Hispanic heritage, moments of the weekend. It's always so fun to chat with you.
Thanks, gang. Miss y'all in the studio. Have a good one.
Oh, miss you too. We'll see you soon. Wednesday, Sandra and I will be on YouTube.